Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Bible Study Minute. Today we're taking a look at 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1, chapter 5, as well as Psalm 23. So what's been happening here in these chapters is David has been made king over the tribe of Judah after receiving word of Saul's death. But the rest of the tribes were set up to have Ish-bosheth, Saul's son, as their king. And what we see in chapter 3, verse 1 is that David was getting stronger with each passing day, and Saul's family was getting weaker. And what we then see over in chapter 5 is that David is eventually made king over all the tribes of Israel after Ish-bosheth is assassinated, as well as Abner, the commander of Saul's army. And we see that David had ruled as king of Judah for 7 years. So this civil war of sorts took an entire 7 years to sort out, with David getting stronger each passing year before the entirety of Israel made him king. But then after that, we see David taking control of Jerusalem, the city of David, also called Zion, by finally attacking and dispossessing the Jebusites from that city. And then we see him having success against the Philistines because of the Lord blessing him. But one thing that we see here is that's really interesting is when Israel sets him up as king and recognizes him as king, that there's a stark contrast between how he is described as king and will be described versus Saul, where we see Saul being described as someone who's going to pretty much take advantage of Israel. But here we see David being described as someone who's going to shepherd the Lord's people. He's going to lead them and guide them. But then we also see, by jumping over to Psalm 23, that David has finally found some rest of sorts, where he's taking comfort in the Lord and knows that the Lord has given him rest and that the Lord is always going to be with him. So that's what we see here. And ultimately what we see is that God is a promise keeper. He made a covenant with David to make him king. And even though it took years before that actually happened, God kept his word. And even though David was fleeing for his life from the current king and doing everything that he could to just stay alive and serve the current king, God never forgot his promise. And here we see God fulfilling that promise to him and giving David some rest. So that's what I want you to remember as you take a look at this passage is don't necessarily look at David, but look at God who is keeping his promise to David and the reasons why he's doing that. So that's what I have for you for now. Until next time, grace and peace.